Good, so let's actually get started. We'll start anyway by having a quick summary on the things. So welcome everybody, this is SharePoint Patterns and Practices monthly community call. So this is the August 2017 monthly community call. We didn't have a monthly community call in July, the last one was in June, and there has been a lot of stuff happening during summertime in the repositories as well. The PnP core team was pretty much on vacation on July, because a lot of the PnP core team members are living in Europe, and in Europe a lot of people are on vacation in July. So that's the reason why we did have a quick break on the community calls and webcast and everything else. But now we're packing business, which is good. So the flow is exactly like it was in the past as well, and like mentioned, everything is getting recorded, including the demos and this one and the intros, so anybody can watch this one using the YouTube channel later on. So we'll have a quick look on the monthly highlights, we'll have a contributions and other topics, going through the other topics, and then we have demos. We officially in our monthly communications we said that we have 3 demos, which is actually quite a lot already, but I'm going to do a quick additional demo showing you something which will go live relatively soon for SharePoint Framework, which everybody has been waiting. So related on, well, I'll actually show you that during the demo. So we will actually have 4 demos. That means that I'm trying to be as fast as possible going through what has happened within the last month, even though there's quite a lot to go through. But all of this is also covered in the monthly communications in the dev2devs.com/blogs, and let me actually paste in that link in the Iron window so people can find that easily. Which has additional details and additional information. So let me get that August link and paste that one into the Iron window. Good. But anyway, let's get on going. So I will do a quick intro on what has happened, and then we move into the community demos. We have, like mentioned, quite a few of them today, but enough chit-chatting, let's actually get on going. So for the July 2017, we've been doing this kind of a monthly summary on the numbers for a past 2 years already, related on PnP components. This will be changed in the future. I didn't have a time to actually update the slides completely, which will then contain also the other numbers related on SharePoint development ecosystem, because SharePoint PnP essentially is coordinating all of the SharePoint developer ecosystem actions nowadays, including all of the documentations and samples and everything else. So our role has been growing quite significantly within the past, well, at least within the past year. But if we think about only the PnP CSM core component, JavaScript core component, and PnP Powershell, we had 5,921 unique tenants using this within the last month, including, and that was 3.5 billion HTTP requests only going through with those components. In the GitHub across the SharePoint organization, there was 26,000 unique visitors, which is growing still heavily in every single month, which is good to see. So people are learning to use the GitHub as well. For some of you, it might be pretty obvious how the GitHub works, but for, let's say, classic SharePoint developers moving into this new world of working might take a while, which means that we'll see plenty of growth on that side in the future as well. There was 128,000 views in GitHub, which is quite a lot. Top countries based on a tenant. The Australia actually passed Germany just by a fraction. And then there was some changes in the top countries based on the requests as well. So we're tracking quite closely how the PnP components are used. The PnP JavaScript core usage is growing by far the fastest. And so clearly those people who are moving into the TypeScript from the C# world are finding that component extremely useful. Obviously the PnP PowerShell extremely useful in the future as well. PnP CSM core extremely useful in the future as well when you're writing something in the backend services, for example in the Azure Web API. Now, within the last month in July, we did have a break on the PnP webcasts, but after the previous June monthly release, we have released 4 different webcasts. The latest was from this Monday, so yesterday, which was around programming modern pages with zones, sections, and news and home pages. And that was really concentrating on the see some core component methods and functionalities which are available to manipulate modern pages and the switch zones and setting news pages and creating new news pages and home pages within the sites, within the modern sites. Those capabilities will be in the PnP Powershell in the future as well. And that means that people can more easily use them. And we're looking into having similar capabilities in the PnP JavaScript core. Right now, Patrick Rogers, who's leading the PnP JavaScript core work, is on a paternity. He had a baby pretty recently, so he's on a small vacation due obvious reasons. We also had some additional webcasts which we did before the summer break as well, which might be useful if you haven't actually checked them out. Now, on the July 2017 most viewed sampled, what's actually interesting around this one is that the GDPR Activity Hub, which is actually extremely interesting sample solution, showing how to build or how to use SharePoint to track GDPR compliance issues. It's also using SharePoint framework. It's also using multiple other things. It is a great solution built by Paolo Bialorsi. Was the #1 sample which was accessed. The second one is typically in the top 1 section, which is the SharePoint UI responsive sample. So people are interested on how to make the classic Seattle.muster responsive because the classic SharePoint isn't responsive. That works in the on-premises and online. It's not a 100% let's say fixed solution, but it actually gets you quite far on the responsiveness. What's kind of I'm not going to go through all of these one by one, but what's interesting in here to see is the growth on the interest around using SharePoint framework samples. So people are clearly more and more watching into the SharePoint framework samples. SharePoint CRUD, as an example, is showing how to create the CRUD operations using Angular, React, JavaScript, and jQuery, and SPS PnP JS Core libraries. So that's probably the reason why that's in the top 5 list from the samples. But a lot of other samples there as well, which are highly useful. Overall, we have more than 300 samples in the SharePoint organization, so there's quite a lot to actually look into. But this is only the top 19 or top 20 samples, if I remember correctly. Now, quickly explaining the model, if you're the first time arriving on here or watching the video, the PnP, the SharePoint Dev ecosystem model works in a way that you can join this ecosystem and community in multiple different ways. So you can participate on the discussions in the developer group in the Microsoft Tech community. You can join on the bi-weekly SharePoint Framework or JavaScript Special Interest Group, which means bi-weekly on Thursdays. There's a link to get that invite to your calendar as well. You can join on the bi-weekly SharePoint Dev Season PnP Core PowerShell and Provisioning Special Interest Group. That's pretty long name for that special interest group, but the whole point is that that's all of this other stuff which isn't around JavaScript development. And that has been now rescheduled. It used to be a bi-weekly Wednesdays. Now it's actually bi-weekly Thursdays as well. So every single week there's a new meeting related on SharePoint development available. And then we have this monthly community calls, which is this one, which we're ongoing, which is more around going through the summary of what has happened within the last month related on SharePoint development, SharePoint communications, samples, documentations, and all of that. So it's really up to you how closely you want to be involved, which of these you want to join, which of these you want to actually participate. And all of these we try to do, especially for the course, we try to have community demos. So if you're interested in doing any community demos, please let us know, and we'll get you signed up for the demos as well. Good. I have 6 minutes before we need to go to the demo section. Now, there was quite a few, 9 new SharePoint Framework client-side web part samples. Not going to mention all of them. Super cool stuff by multiple people. So thank you for your contributions. So please have a look on these if you're interested in writing custom SharePoint Framework web parts. For the SharePoint Framework extensions, there was actually 14 new SharePoint Framework extension samples submitted by the community / SharePoint engineering people. And these are showing different sections of the SharePoint extensions. So field customizers, application customizers, or custom list view customizers. So super interesting stuff. Some of these are superbly cool implementations as well. And for both of these, for the web parts and extensions, we'll have a one demo for both sites today. I do apologize if some of you would have wanted to have a demo today. Please ping me, let's say in the GitHub or anywhere else, and we'll get you queued up on the following community calls. Now, on the other stuff, on the, let's say, classic PnP side, there's an updated sample on the portal data access layer, and then there's an updated sample provisioning modern pages, which relates on the latest webcast. So how do you manipulate pages with multiple sections and web parts and everything else? There's also quite a lot of new articles and guidance articles, and quite a lot of new videos available. We started this new SharePoint PnP Shorts video series back in June, and that has now 7 videos queued up, or 7 videos released. We have few videos already waiting to get released whenever the functionality is actually out. But those are meant to be more like 5 to 10 minutes quick videos showing a specific thing, like what would it be? How to lock down your versions, how to do certain things properly in the SharePoint framework. And then on the core and engine updates, so if you're into the core component or in the provisioning or the remote provisioning, we have now preview release of the new schema available. We are lacking 2 specific things from the schema, so we didn't do a master fully release on this one, but you can already today use the latest schema for the remote provisioning. And within the new schema, we're supporting additional settings in list instance, additional settings in the template level. You can do IRM settings in the lists. You can do image renditions and provision those remotely. And we're looking into having list webhook support and also client-side pages support by the next monthly release of the core component. You can already today, like mentioned, use the latest preview schema version. It should be working. If there's any issues, we'll work on them as fast as possible. But by default, the core component and the Powershell will still use the previous schema. So by default, you need to explicitly say schema version 2017-05, and then it will start using the latest schema version. For example, when you're extracting a component or extracting a template from existing site. On the PowerShell, same thing, mainly concentrates on the changes on the engine side. And we'll have a quick coverage on that one by Bert in this call as well. We did have quite a few people participating on or contributing on this latest release. Obviously, we didn't do a release on July, so this is combining two different months. But there's a massive amount of people who have been contributing in the GitHub, in the community channels, by helping others by providing samples, providing guidance, providing documentation, fixes, typo fixes, and whatever what's available around the SharePoint dev. So thank you a lot on your contributions, because you're helping us to make sure that our material is up to date. We understand what's needed. You're giving us input using the GitHub issue lists, and you're giving us the really super valuable stuff, what we need to concentrate in the future in the engineering as well. So thank you everybody for your contributions. From a company perspective, these are the companies which we have a permission to show the logos. So from a previous page, previous slide, these are the companies where people are working. If your company isn't listed in here and you would like to have that logo available, maybe in the future releases, just you need to actually send me an email explicitly giving me permission to do so. That's a Microsoft legal requirement for me to show those logos in the slides. But thank you for all of these companies to give resources and give people time to help on the open source and community work, which will help then others around SharePoint development. Now, on the Microsoft side, typical list of people. There's quite a few additional people in the list as well who has helped us, the PnP community and the SharePoint dev ecosystem on providing contributions, samples, guidance, and progressing and processing items, for example, in a GitHub. So thank you for your contributions as well. Now, moving on to the demos, and I'm hitting exactly on the minute. This is probably the first time ever this is happening. I didn't take additional time. Originally, we were planning to do 3 demos. 3 demos, first starting by Bert, doing a demo on the latest capabilities on the provisioning schema, so showing what's available. Then moving in the Simon Peer. Simon Peer is in a call I already provided you, and then moving into the Alex around the SharePoint SharePoint framework extension. So we'll start by me doing quick demo around tenant-wide deployment option for SharePoint framework, because those of you who might be aware of the SharePoint framework, you might be super interested on how can I actually have my web part immediately available across all of my sites just by adding that web part to the app catalog. And that capability is coming, and I would say that it's coming within days rather than within weeks, so it's happening quite soon. But I can do a quick demo on what does it actually mean in practice, and you'll get that capability available quite soon. And then we'll move into Bert, and then we'll move to Simon, and then Alex as the last topic. Good. And Alex is updated as well. Thank you, Bert, for updating Alex as a presenter. So let me do first the tenant scope, quick demo on the tenant scope thing, so you'll understand how it actually works. So I'm going to share my screen, and somebody needs to tell me when the screen sharing is working, so I can show you this one in practice. We know that this is something what people have been waiting for quite a lot. We'll absolutely release documentation. There will be more detailed video, a PnP short video available. But what I quickly want to go through is the process and how it actually works, and then we can move on to the additional demos as well. Now, and yes, Sebastian, it's coming soon. It is coming soon. Thanks, Alex, for confirming. So I have here a pre-release version of the SPFX Yeoman template. So this is not available for you, and I'm not actually going to walk through too much details on what's actually happening here, but I'm going to show you the process in practice. So the updated version of the Yeoman, now I'm running actually that in the solution, so let me do this. Test 01. So now if I run the Yeoman template, it will actually ask one additional thing as part of the flow. So my test solution name would be that. That's absolutely fine. Let me zoom that slightly. Let's use current folder. It is actually asking this one. So do you allow tenant admin the choice of being able to deploy the solution to all sites immediately without running any feature deployment or additional apps to the sites? Pretty long question. But essentially what this means is that this is the controlling the setting in the package solution JSON file, which will then enable you to have the web part available across all of the sites just by adding that to the app catalog. So if you answer yes, that setting will be true. If you answer no, the setting will be false. Let's have a look on the setting as well. So let me actually get back in here. And I'm just checking the folder name, tenant deploy true. So let me go there. Tenant deploy, and that's a wrong one. True. So I have already that one open in my Visual Studio Code. But the key point here is that we'll have an additional setting in the package solution, which is this skip deploy true or false. And what this one means is that the tenant admin has then a permission and an option to push this web parts to be available across all of the sites within a tenant without the solution being installed explicitly on a site. Now, there's one thing which we need to remember on that one. If this one will be done, and if you set that one to true, this solution buckets cannot deploy any assets using the feature framework technique. Because to be able to support the feature framework way of provisioning, let's say, lists and fields and content types, you need to explicitly install that solution to the site. So that capability, if this setting is true, the feature XML way of provisioning stuff is not available for your solution. So it's something to remember. And now if I do quickly, let's do call bundle. And then, and I'll come back on the Alex's comment in a second. Good comment. And carp package solution. So what I'm doing is that I'm quickly packaging that solution, and let's actually open that one in an Explorer. Here's my SharePoint solution available, tenant deployed true. Let's quickly checking that I'm not actually cheating. It's tenant-wide deploy is the title of the web part. So there we go. There's my solution. Let's flip on my test tenant, which is in an eDoc. So this is not available, obviously, in any normal environment. I'm going to install that one to my eDoc app catalog. And there's an additional thing already at confirmation of the deployment. So now, if the setting is true in the solution, we will show you this checkbox or the application catalog administrator will be shown by this checkbox. And if the application catalog administrator checks the checkbox, then the solution or the web parts or the functionalities within that solution will be automatically available across all of the sites. And that's essentially it. So now if I go to a site, let's go to a classic theme site. And let's add a page, because I clicked the checkbox and I had the setting true. If I could create a new page, if I go to the page, if I scroll down, it's actually getting here, we can see the tenant-wide deploy a web part available immediately. And just to be 100% super clear, I haven't installed anything on the site. There's no site deployment in here at all. Or same obviously applies also to modern sites, modern team sites, modern group site, whatever we call these. So if I create a new page, we can see that that setting or the web part is available, tenant-wide deploy web part is available within a site. So the first one here was a classic site. This is classic site because if I go to the home, you can see that it's a classic site. And then, classic experience. That's actually a good point. So it should be actually available in the classic pages as well. So if I go to the insert, add a web part under deployment, there's quite a few of them. Tenant-wide deploy, there it is. So all good. So it will be visible automatically across all of the sites, across all of the pages, and you're able to add that one into the site. Now, this was meant to be super quick, but this is essentially, we know for a fact that this is widely weighted capability. People need to have this so they're able to automate the deployment of the web parts to the site. So let's flip back to Bert's demo, and while we're doing that and checking the order and everything else, I'll answer some of the questions what's actually happening in the window. So Bert, please take it away. While Bert is doing that, just answering quick questions, Sebastian is asking when. Answer is in days rather than in weeks. So this one will happen quite soon. I can't give you an exact date right now, but it's happening relatively soon. Then there was a question from Alex, which is super good question. I mentioned that the feature framework elements, possible feature framework elements in the solution are not applied if we use this option. And the reason for that one is that the solution deployment doesn't explicitly actually happen because the solution isn't deployed on the site, and that's why the feature XML elements are not actually executed. That it means for the extension case, it means that the extension is available for you to get assigned in the user custom action or in the field level. How do you get that one assigned to the field or user custom action is now the unknown question, or I wouldn't say unknown question, but you can, for example, use the PnP provisioning engine, you can use CSAM, you can use REST, or you can automate that as part of the provisioning of the sites. So essentially, what we would be looking in a quite often, the case would be that you use this option to get the web part to be available across all of the sites, and then, for example, within your provisioning solution, you use the PnP provisioning engine to assign the client-side component ID for the user custom action or for the, let's say, field object. That would be the way to process there. We are looking into having also in future automated ways of getting solutions deployed explicitly to the site. So that option is still in the backlog. Sorry, it's still in the backlog, but that's not something which will be available within a matter of days or within weeks. So that's still work in progress somewhere in the future. Good. Now, let's actually flip into the Bert's session and Bert's demo, and if there's any questions around that quick demo, I can answer those in the IAM window. Bert, take it away.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Vesa. So, as mentioned during the introduction of this monthly call, we have actually released a preview of the SharePoint of our PnP 2017-05, so the May 2017 schema. This schema is not yet a default option, so any actions you do by default, you always use the current production schema, which is 2016-05. Now, in this quick demo, I want to show you how you can actually use the 2017-05 schema, because we want you to give it a try and give us feedback. It's not fully complete yet, so it does misses two kind of parts, mainly around the client-side pages and list webhooks, but they will be added before the next master merge, so for the September release. But the other changes which were mentioned in the slide, like for example IRAM, are already present in this new schema version. All right, so I'm going to show you two ways how to use the new schema. First one is PowerShell. So I'm going to connect to a site, and let's quickly enter my account. I added the -verbose flag because it shows you that the actual version of the command that you're running. So this only works with commandlet version 1708.1. So you need to ensure that you have this version or higher before you try this new schema. All right, so once that's done, let's get us a template. And how to get a template for our new schema version? Simple, by just adding this -schema and specify the actual schema version that you want. If you omit this one, so if you don't specify this one, we will default to 2016-05. If you add it, you can choose the schema. So in this case, I'm going to choose the schema 2017-05. And to speed up the extraction of the template, I'm going to only grab the list information and send it to the clipboard. So this will take a few seconds. And once this is finished, I'm going to paste the actual result of the run into Notepad to have a look. So we're almost done. The reason why I chose list is because the list has the IRAM settings, so we can show some of the new schema as a result. All right, that did work. So I'm going to open up Notepad++. I'm going to paste the resulting XML file. Let me quickly navigate to the IRAM demo list, and let's collapse these guys as well, just to make it easier for you guys to read. Like this, a little bit bigger. Right. So how do you know whether you are using the correct template version? So very simple. The actual used schema version is mentioned in the file. So you would need to look for 175 to ensure that you have the proper version, which is the case here. So that's good. Then this is like a regular PnP XML file, nothing special, only there's new elements in there. For example, like the IRAM settings, and more to come, as mentioned in the slide. All right. This quick demo showed it in PowerShell. Now, I think most people play around with the provisioning engine using PowerShell. If you ever are using a source code, you can do it similar ways. I'm not going to really run the demo because it's just to save some time. But what I want to show you guys is the following. Zoom in again. Well, that's too big, sorry. So in this demo, creating client contexts, setting up the provisioning template creation information, and then getting the provisioning template. So this is the classic flow on how to grab a template from an existing site. This gives you a template instance, which is version agnostic. So the provisioning template itself doesn't have a specific version. We only apply specific version when we serialize the template to the file system. In this case, we're going to serialize with an XML provider. So I want to create an XML file. This default behavior is this. So this part is the default flow that you used to see. And this generates a template using the 2016 or 5 schema, because that's still our default schema. If you ever want to use our new schema, you need to explicitly specify a formatter. So there is, using this XML PnP schema formatter class, you can grab a formatter. So in this case, the 2017 or 5 formatter, and you pass in that formatter in the save as command. And that's it. So by explicitly passing the formatter, you can kind of force the XML template provider to use the right schema for you to serialize your template. All right, so I hope this gives you guys information on how to start playing around with the new schema. As I said in the beginning, please give it a try, give us feedback, fix things if things are broken, because we want to get this in a good state for the next release in September. So at that point it will be the default schema for the engine.
And at that point, we're hitting like 99% of all of public CSAM APIs or remote APIs in general, what we can actually configure. Maybe not 99%, but 98%. So the coverage of the remote provisioning engine is pretty high. Anyway, I think we need to move on. If there's any questions for Bert around the schema as well, feel free to use the IAM window. Let's flip to Simon Beer. So you can just start sharing, and that will then steal Bert's screen.
I'll be there in a second. If you guys can just confirm you see my screen.
And Simon implemented super cool content by query web part using the modern techniques, and we can see your screen. So all good.
Perfect.
Let's do this. So Simon, no worries. This might happen due to numerous reasons. So if you restart Skype completely and join back, let's upgrade you as a presenter. But while we're doing that, if Alex is ready, we can flip on the Alex's demo, and hopefully this is not a wider issue.
All right, I'll try to come back in a second.
Thanks, Simon. No worries. No worries.
Yeah, I'm ready. So
excellent.
I can
Thanks, Alex. Let's see if it works for you.
Okay. Okay, can you see my window?
Loading. And got it. It's a green, you have overdue tasks. If you move your mouse, we can probably see, is it? Yes, we can see the mouse move. Good.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, so today I have a, I believe, very short demo because it's really easy. I'm going to show you an application customizer that shows this warning message if a current user has any overdue tasks. So prerequisites here was to create tasks list in your dev tenant and add some tasks. Some of them, if you can see, are already due. One of them is not due. So if there are any due lists, then you see this message. And if you click on Go to List, you will see a late tasks view filtered by current user. So that's it from what has been done. And now to the code. It's easy again. First, some changes to strings. So I have the message itself, and go to list is the text for the link. Some CSS. I'm using themes here. themes variable. So because of that, you see that the background is green, the same as this rectangle. And from code perspective, I'm using SPPNP.js to make queries to the to get data from SharePoint. Also, I changed the properties interface because in this particular application customizer, we need to know the title of the task list to get information from there. So if you look at the URL, it is provided in the properties element. Tasks list title is tasks. So yeah, on init method, I'm doing one request with PnP batching. It's a cool way to do multiple requests in one batch request to avoid like any ping things, right? Any lags with the network. So the first request is to get view URL for late tasks, as we want to redirect user there. And the second request is to get items from the list filtered by assigned to and due date. And yeah, then we're just running batch execute and resolving the on init promise. In onRender, the first part is just check if there are any due tasks returned by our request to the list, and if there are, then I'm just using the standard way to get to attach to page header placeholder and to insert some markup here. So that's actually it. I don't know what to tell more in these 15 minutes.
Yeah, but that's a relatively simple and nice scenario as well. So and cool demo on the capabilities. Yeah, and Simon is having some connectivity. Well, now it might actually work. Let's see if Simon can get it to work. We can. Oh, there's Simon is actually on the call as well. Cool. So, and if it doesn't work, we can absolutely postpone it to the 17th of August. We do have a special interest group call for SharePoint framework during that time. But let's see if the screen sharing can work. And thank you, Alex, on that one. It's just an interesting, simplistic scenario and to show functionalities and how they work. I have to say that Chris Kent had an awesome demo and a sample as well. You want to check it out. It was the what was it? Come on, I'm losing it. It was the toast messages from the application customizer. So that was superb work as well. And to be fair, Chris, you could have just as well do a demo in here as well. We just ran out of time of organizing all of the demos for this call, and I do apologize on that. So, but Simon, all good. We can actually see the screen updating, and we should be good to go for the demo, which is good.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, this is basically a standard SharePoint site that I created in my old tenant a while ago, and I'll go ahead and show you guys what the actual web part can do actually. The only two things I did to this website is add a demo page, which is for now empty. I will show it to you guys in a second, and a custom list. So if we go ahead and take a look at the custom list here, it's basically a standard list that has 5 list items. And I created a custom field for every type of field available within SharePoint. All right. So if we go back to our demo page and we go ahead and add a React content by query web part to the page, go. As you guys will notice, when the web part is installed initially on the page for the first time, instead of just showing an error message or a basic static message, I decided to take advantage of the reactive mode that was made available by the SharePoint framework, which essentially updates the web parts as the properties are getting updated. So I decided to leverage that functionality by showing the user the properties that are still to be configured, in order for the web part to be able to display anything, basically. So I'll go ahead and just edit the web part there. As you can see, the tool part has 3 different pages, each of them placed in a logical order, we could say, and the first one being the source part of the process. Okay, so the source is basically where you want to get the information from what web you want to get the information from, and from what list more specifically you want to get the information from. So let's go ahead and select our root web. So as you can see, when you select the root web, the web part gets updated and shows the user that there's only 3 checkboxes left before it can show anything, basically. And just a word about the web URL here. The request that I made for populating that drop-down menu right here is actually a search request. Why a search request? Because it allows me to basically fill the drop-down menu with some, not only the children's sites, but also different site collections from different sites from different site collections, basically, which makes it a bit more powerful. Now, when it comes to the list, let's select my custom list that I just showed you guys previously. We're now 2 steps done. The second page, where is my mouse? There you go. The second page is the query part of the process. So that's where you're going to say, pretty much like the good old content by query web part, I want to order my items by creation date, descending. I want to enable a max number of limit to the items. I want to return maximum of 50 items. There you go. And that's where you can add custom filters. For example, I could say, I want all the items where the my choice field does not equal test1. I'm just putting random values because I don't want to limit my results right here. We could add different filters, and you'll notice that depending on the type of field that you're using, you're going to have a different kind of value field here. So we can try this out by using a person field, for instance. If we're using person field, you're going to have basically a people picker that allows you to put users directly like this. Now, if we switch our field to a datetime field, for example, let's say a taxonomy field, you're going to have pretty much the same thing, but it's a taxonomy picker that will show up to you. And finally, let's switch this to a datetime field. Datetime will pretty much give you a calendar option here where you can put the date, and you can go all the way to the hours because it is now possible to include time in the query, which is something that wasn't possible previously, at least through the interface with the old content by query web part. And you can do a good old expression like these. Oops, sorry about that. If you want to say, give me all the items that are equal to tomorrow, or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and take off that filter just so I can still get results. And we're going to go to the last page that is missing. It's the fun part to me. It's basically the display part of the process. So what view fields you want to make it viable through the handlebar template. And that's also where you will define the handlebar template. Okay. For defining the handlebar templates, you pretty much have 2 options. Either you define it right in this model window here, so inline, it will be treated and persisted just like any web part properties, or you specify a URL to a valid handlebars HTML files that will be stored somewhere in a SharePoint site or something like that. Now, before selecting my first view field, you guys will notice as soon as I select the first view field, these 2 checkboxes here will get completed at the same time. Why is that? Because as soon as you check the first view field, the web part automatically creates a handlebar template for you. So it's quite useful for a user because the user doesn't have to go in the documentation and see and read pretty much everything to get started. He can work directly with the out-of-the-box template that is generated for him by the web part. So let's go ahead and select the My Choice field. So what happens is basically the template, the default handlebars template has been generated by for the user. We're seeing our 5 items that were in the My Custom list right now with the field that we selected and its value. Now let's take a look at the default template that the web part generated for us. Right now, there's a bunch of CSS that has been generated, nothing complicated. Then there's a main div that has been created there. Then we're looping with the handlebars syntax through all the items that the query returned. And for each of the items, we're creating a div displaying the selected field and its value. Now, if I cancel this and I just go ahead and keep selecting different fields, you'll see that the template keeps getting updated with the fields that I have chosen. This is by design. It is not a bug. Basically, the only times where the template stops getting updated like this is from the moment the user updates the template manually himself. So let's update the template and write update here. Obviously, we're seeing our update right here. Then the next field we're going to pick up is not going to appear automatically, which is also by design, because you don't want to ruin, like, let's say the designer put it like 3 hours worth of work designing the template. You don't want to ruin the whole template just because you selected another view fields, right? So nothing stops the designer from adding the field himself. We're going to select this. We're going to add the new view field that we just added, which is a my yes no field. Each time you're referring a field, in order to display its value, you have to refer the internal name of the actual field. Save. And our yes/no field is being displayed here. Now, that's pretty much it. The way it works is pretty straightforward. As for the templating part that you see right here, I'm not going to go into details because there's a lot of documentation on the Handlebars website itself that says how to use, for loops, looping through arrays, doing conditional statements and stuff like that. But however, in order to get started and start designing a handlebar template with this particular web part, there's two major things to learn just before getting started. One of them being, if you go at the documentation of my web part, one of them being the available tokens, okay? One of the available tokens, the first one actually, is the items tokens. This is quite straightforward, obviously. It's the items that are returned by your query. So that's, if we go back to our demo here and we go back to the template, that's the items tokens that we're looping through here, okay? The second one that is made available is the page context. I basically took the page context object, which is available directly within the SharePoint framework, and exposed it directly through the handlebars context. That allows you to basically create conditional statements based, for example, on the current language. So you could render something in English, and then if it's not in English, you could render something else. There's all kind of useful information in the page context object. I'm not going to go through them here, but there's a lot of useful stuff. And then the two other tokens are quite useful as well. Previously, when you had no access with the old content by query web part, when you had no access to the content that is being queried, there was simply no results, right? Instead of simply showing no results, what I did is I will return indeed an empty array of items, but I will also return this variable access denied to true. It's a boolean that will be true if ever the user doesn't have access to the queried content. So that's quite useful because it allows the designer of the template to decide what to show in a case where the user doesn't have access to the queried content, which is quite nice. The same thing with the web not found. If ever the web part tries to query a web that does not exist anymore, it was previously configured, it was working previously correctly, but let's say the site got deleted or something, web not found token will return true as well. So you can decide, again, the designer can decide what to show in a case where we're trying to query a web that is not found. So that's the first thing you got to know before starting designing the handlebar template with this web part. The second thing you have to know is this portion right here. If we go back to the fields that I was rendering here, all of them have the internal name of the fields that I selected, dot text value. What is text value? There's three options instead of text value, basically. There's text value, HTML value, raw value. Okay, the good thing about using a camel query is that the REST API behind it returns you three kinds of values: a text value, an HTML value, and a raw value. The text value is pretty much the cute value, the one you want to see when reading. The HTML value is, well, it is what it says. It's the HTML formatted value. So for example, for a link field, the HTML value would pretty much be an anchor with the link description in the middle and the link URL within the href attribute. And finally, the raw value. The raw value depends a lot on what what kind of field you're trying to render. For example, the raw value on a people field will be the ID of the current user within the site collection, but it could be the WSS ID for a taxonomy field and stuff like that. So if I wrote a small example here trying to display a user field, and I tried to display all three values. So the text value would basically be the readable value, so the display name of the user, the HTML value, and anchor, like I said, and the raw value, the integer that matches the ID of the current user within the site collection. We'll take a look at this by taking this link field right here. We'll copy it, and we'll try to see what's the HTML value. We'll put HTML right here. And what's the raw value of it? Save. So as you can see, the text value is not really useful because it basically puts the link, but it puts separated by a comma, it puts a description as well, which is not necessarily something you want to see. The raw value is an object, which doesn't tell us much. And oops, I forgot. I did a little mistake here. Raw value, HTML value. That's the one we're missing. So the HTML value is an anchor, but it's not interpreted by the browser yet. We'll show you in a second what to do with this. For the raw value, in order to see what's behind my object, there's something really simple you can use. Basically, anywhere within your template, you can just do debug, which is super useful. This will put right through the console the context of my handlebars. So these variables that I showed you previously, web not found, access denied, items, page context, they're all here, and you can all look at them directly here. So here are my items. Let's say I check at the first item, my link field, what's its HTML value, raw value, text value. If we take a look at the raw value, we can clearly see that it's an object that contains the URL and description. So now that we know this, we can edit our template and specify that for the raw value, we want the actual, let's say, URL. And boom, we have directly the URL. Now for the HTML field, again, there's documentation on the handlebars syntax, but basically with handlebars, if you want the browser to stop escaping the value and actually render it, you just use triple brackets instead of double brackets. That will basically render an anchor out of the box for us. We could have built the anchor directly within the template, but it's a nice feature. For a person field, there would be the presence indicator of the person and stuff like that. So it can get quite interesting. So there you go. I'll go ahead and publish this. So that's pretty much it for the web part. Okay, there's quite a lot of possibilities from the moment you can decide what to render from where and filter the items and stuff. For a real life scenario, I can show you guys one last quick things that I did. When I started this demo, I showed you guys the main page of my website, which is essentially a out-of-the-box page, right? But the little surprise I did yesterday was I replaced the top web part. Saw the little processing query. You see me coming. Basically, it's my web part that replicated the exact tiles that comes with SharePoint. But instead of hard-coding the tiles, I basically feeded the tiles from a homepage links list that I'm going to show you guys in a second. And I basically created a template that uses the same markup that SharePoint uses when he creates a out-of-the-box theme site. And that, by the way, is in a classic page. So the web part does work flawless in a classic page. So if we go in a site contents page, and I show you the list behind that, it's coming. We basically have a list homepage links with the three tiles. So if I go ahead and just, for example, delete that tiles, there you go. If everything's good, we should have two tiles at the front. There you go. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent demo, great walkthrough on the capability, and great work on the implementation of the web port as well. No doubt, super useful web port, and I'll make sure that also internally in Microsoft Engineering people are aware of this one, because this shows really the power of the platform and how things can be implemented by the third-party developers. So great job on that. Now we're hitting one last minute on the scheduled timing. So I'm going to flip back on the presentation and just close up on this one. But thank you, Bert. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Simon, for your quick demos. Great work on the contributions. Super valuable contributions for the community to help to learn how to do modern SharePoint customizations. We do understand that there's a lot of people watching into the SharePoint framework and freaking out, and we'll help you on learning this new way of doing customizations in the future as well. And hopefully, if you need any guidance, if you need additional instructions, if you need additional things which is not available, please let us know. Obviously, some of you are more familiar of SharePoint framework or the web stack development than others, but it's just a matter of taking the time and learning how to do stuff. It's not rocket science, but new way of doing stuff anyway. Anyway, I think that sums up our August 2017 community call. So thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for great demos, and we'll get the recording of this monthly community call to the YouTube channel. We did not have a massive amount of participants for this month, but to be fair, that's as expected because we updated our monthly community call, the invites, and that usually is visible within the first monthly calls. But hoping to see you on the next monthly community call, and if you're interested, drop by on the special interest group calls if you have any questions, or where we have more time for the Q&A around the topics as well. Please keep the feedback coming in the issue lists and in the community channels, so we know what we need to do also from a SharePoint engineering perspective. But thank you everybody, and hoping to see you later in the future as well. Thank you.